I've got a story to tell you. It might sound unbelievable, but the person who experienced it once thought the same, until they saw something that changed them forever. Here we dive into the paranormal, the strange and the unexplained, from personal supernatural encounters to some of the most infamous unsolved mysteries in history, all told in an immersive, atmospheric, narrative-led style. Let's hear these stories and try to figure out together what really happened. The world is a very strange place. Someone has to record it. Because after all, everywhere has a ghost story. Archived in collaboration with SpectreVision Radio. Welcome to the Tape Library.
The world moves fast. Your workday, even faster. Pitching products, drafting reports, analyzing data. Microsoft 365 Copilot is your AI assistant for work. Built into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and other Microsoft 365 apps you use. Helping you quickly write, analyze, create, and summarize. So you can cut through clutter and clear a path to your best work. Learn more at Microsoft.com/M365 Copilot.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
SpectreVision Radio.
Telemetry and launch condition.
Well, some other observers.
It's late night.
It's late night on the astral plane, where it's never too late. With your host, Ryan Singer.
It's more fun to believe.
Hey everybody, thank you for joining another voyage of Late Night on the Astral Plane. This is your buddy Ryan Singer. Excited today, we have a first-time guest. And I am almost dead certain that I first came across your work in a documentary, but I could be wrong, and I should have cleared this with you beforehand. But I've got Scott Tompkins, creator of the Bigfoot Mapping Project. We're talking about a really, really cool, really innovative project that he's undertaken and spearheaded. I mean, there's something here I wanted to read about it. It's, users can submit sightings from any place, anytime. It's got a database population. It's all about reports from the public. And what differentiates this project from others is the reporting system, which is designed to collect standardized, crowdsourced reports without interruption. And so, there's all kinds of benefits to crowdsourcing and, building community. And we're huge on community on this show. And then also unexpected insights that might just occur through the crowdsourcing, component of this thing. And, you launch with a degree in GIS, which is Geographical Information Systems. I believe, am I saying that correct?
That's right. That's perfect.
So I think is it accurate just to say you're a geographer?
Technically, yes, I am a geographer. I have a background in GIS, as you stated, cartography, environmental science, and computer applications, all rolled into one degree.
Very, very cool. And so thanks for doing the show. I'm trying to remember have you been on multiple documentaries or one, or I'm trying to remember.
One, and nobody ever invited me back. So
what documentary was that?
It was a Flash of Beauty. You might have seen me in.
Flash of Beauty, yes, by
Yes.
what is it, Scott and
Brett
uh
Eichelberger
or
and
Brett,
Jill
Brett.
Redmond Snyder. Yep.
Yes, the
Yeah.
yeah,
Two
the
good friends of
team.
mine. Yeah, they're great. I
Yeah.
still keep in touch, and they're working on a lot of stuff, and they've put excellent documentaries out. They're great cinematographers, storytellers, documentary filmmakers, and all around just good people. So I'm happy to say that I was a part of that film.
Okay, definitely. I think I wrote your name down while watching that. And because I watched Flash of Beauty 1 and 2, there's two of them currently, I believe, and they are beautiful films. And there's, they really differentiate themselves in the field of paranormal documentary films. And, I've got at least a couple friends who are friends with them as well. I have to get them on the show because I'm currently making a documentary myself, as all paranormal investigators are, required by, universal law to be doing it at any given time. But it's just a really well-made film. As someone who's also been in the entertainment industry for 20 years and made short films and things like that, I just really appreciate the filmmaking of the Flash of Beauty films. You should definitely check those out if you haven't. They're on Tubi. They're everywhere you can stream stuff. So if you haven't seen those yet, I highly recommend it because it's all interviews with people. And the narrative is constructed of each film through storytelling, through personal experience. And we can maybe touch on that aspect of your own journey later, but I really want to get to the nuts and bolts of the Bigfoot mapping project. You can go to bigfootmap.com if you want to check out the website while you're watching or listening along. I highly recommend doing that. And you'll be able to see all the different tools, all the different filters and layers you can add to this thing. It is really, really something to be proud of. How did you get the idea to first do this?
It's a kind of a winding and weaving story, but it all really starts with my GIS degree, which got me out into the field doing geophysical exploration, seismic exploration onshore US. And what we were looking for, or mapping, is the formations beneath the surface of the earth. So like the geology of the earth and where oil and gas deposits were, where these companies could put oil wells and produce efficiently, right? So we were making a map of all of that. And to do that, I had to go out and speak with landowners to get permission to drill shot holes and put explosives down the shot hole and get enough acoustic energy through the ground so that we could record it with the geophones we put out there. And that meant we had to be all over their property, right? We had to get permission to leave equipment there, the right to ingress and egress across their property. And one of the cool things about that was, being a mapper, I got to go out and walk these properties with all the people that owned essentially the American countryside, right? We were not in places that were big urban centers, right? We were in places that are very rural, very small population. So I got to become embedded, if you will, into these communities throughout, from Pennsylvania, West Virginia, to Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana, all over the country. And as I was doing that, people would naturally start talking about weird things that happened on their property, and unusual things or scary things or stories, as we're riding on their side by side and they're telling me how to get into their pasture, and they'd be like, over there, I was hunting over there one time in my tree stand, and a big brown and white Bigfoot walked out in front of me. And the first time it happened, I was like, this guy, I'm alone in the woods with this guy. This,
like
this
give me
is,
circa time frame here.
So that would have been around 2007.
Okay.
2007, 2008. Hopefully older than I look, but I've been in the industry about 20 years, give or take. And so that was about 2008. And 2008 to 2010, I was all over the place talking to a lot of people. And as I was hearing these stories, I was thinking, nobody has a map of this. I should make a map of this, because this is how I have learned to interpret the world. And I believe, as evidenced through the project, that maps really speak volumes. So you can look at a map, and even if it's a well done map, without reading the map legend, you can understand what it's telling you. and it can weave a story. It can help you discover insights and patterns and plan and explore. So I'm naturally curious, and I started to see connections between what people were telling me in different areas, different states, different parts of the country, and I wanted to understand it for myself first and foremost because it was happening to me. Like, why are these people? Why were they all telling me these stories? And what I didn't ask for these stories to be told. I didn't like pull them out of people. They were volunteered as we were going out, and these were real experiences that people were having. So that's what inspired the idea. And then fast forward a few more years, and ESRI, the Environmental Science Research Institute, which makes ArcGIS, a mapping software, put out ArcGIS online. And finally, the technology caught up to being accessible enough for me to, a pseudo developer like me, to make something that could handle crowdsourcing and match the vision I had for capturing the data from the general public in a fashion that was efficient, standardized, accessible, and scalable, right? So that's the long and short of how I got to the Bigfoot mapping project today.
Well, it's really interesting. You're describing what, many, many people on this show have described previously who do, psychic work or somatic work or things like that, as far as like, being like empathic, or when people just share things that they might not normally share with strangers on airplanes or things like that. And you're like a Bigfoot empath. You're like the empath, the cryptid empath.
That's the first
And
time I've heard that.
you're like a Bigfoot empath. Like people were just like, oh, this guy, I don't know what it is about this guy, but I gotta share my Bigfoot story with him. That's a unique characteristic that I've never heard about before.
Nobody's ever pointed that out. It's actually quite new for me to hear that, but uh, it did happen, and it well obviously continues to happen on a much larger scale, right? And I think hopefully I can be a lightning rod for that. I really, this is a passion project, like we were talking about before the call started. And if it's something that I can contribute to the community, is good data and good research, or at least material, it would be my privilege to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool. I mean, throw author as another feather into your cap as well with Marmalade's First Adventure, which I think speaks to the passion about, the subject matter and the kind of life as well. Marmalade's First Adventure, if I'm not mistaken, is a children's book about a young Squatch, kind of, and you follow along on the adventure of that. And I'm curious, was that inspired by, maybe having a child of your own?
Absolutely. So when I found out we were pregnant with my son Rhett, I
What a
was inspired.
great name. I mean, we're going to talk about top 4 all-time names that start with R. Okay. Obviously, I'm partial to Ryan. Rhett might be number 2 on my list. I'm a huge baseball fan. Rhett Lauder is a pitcher for the Cincinnati Reds that I'm very excited about, as he'll be a rookie this year. What a great name. Sorry to interrupt. I get
Oh
excited
no,
about that kind of stuff.
he's so we before we knew his name or anything, I was inspired to just write a story about that had a message for him, that his parents would always be there to teach him and support him and guide him, but he could learn to be independent and curious on his own, and that's what the story is about. Marmalade kind of learns through lessons and a test to go out on his own. And I just wanted, when he's older, Rhett to be able to look back on that and say, oh, I hope they taught me that, or at least to have something to read his kids one day, right? So
That's
it
really
was,
cool.
and I was inspired because I think Bigfoot really inspires curiosity in everyone. And what a great way to, even if you're not a researcher, to be inspired to explore the outdoors, get outside, learn more about the wilderness. And everything in that book, the advice that he gets is actual like survival advice. So it's really applicable too, which is important to be practical, as I'm sure we'll discover through the interview. But yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm always happy to talk about that. Always happy to talk about my son and my wife. My family is, I'm very lucky. Very
That's
lucky.
really cool. That's really cool. And I'm curious if there's not a hat tip to Paddington the Bear here, just a little bit. I mean, Marmalade, obviously, Paddington the Bear, if anyone's familiar, those movies are pretty good, actually. If you've never seen them, I highly recommend them. They're really fun movies. But and Sally, I think it's what is it, Sally Hawkins? Or I'm trying to remember the actress. She won the Oscar for The Shape of
Oh,
Water, the
hmm
Guillermo del Toro movie. She's like my favorite. But
hmm
anyway, Paddington's obsessed with marmalade. Um, as one of his just like personality traits. He just can't eat enough, he can't get enough marmalade. But so I was wondering if there was if there was some kind of like subtle hat tip to Paddington and his curiosity at all.
Actually, I can tell you exactly where the name Marmalade came from.
Okay.
It was the logo that I designed for the Bigfoot mapping project has an orange Bigfoot, and jokingly, I just called him Marmalade.
Oh, very
And
cool.
it evolved into becoming a character in the book when we found out we were going to have Rhett. So, I didn't even make that connection to Paddington, in fact. But now that you have, that's pretty interesting. So,
Well, I mean, you
uh,
got to go a couple steps, but it is interesting, Paddington, this bear is trying to go on these adventures and survive this crazy world. But anywho, the that it's fascinating to me when someone who clearly has I don't know, a greater grasp on their intellectual capabilities than maybe someone like myself, and then they can bring these practical tools and these really helpful things that are extremely complicated, but package them in a simplified way for people like me to just intuitively be able to jump on the website and be able to understand how to use this thing. And so I'm guessing that's where the school and the education and all this kind of comes. It's how can we make these maps, like you said earlier, you don't have to know anything about map to be able to actually access some information from it. Is that the key to cartography and this kind of GIS, like making things intuitive and understandable even with no foreknowledge?
Absolutely. Cartography, especially, is the art of the element. There's like 7 elements of a map, and I won't go through everything, but there's like a neat line, a legend, et cetera, et cetera. And then even the colors you use in the map, right? You have to think about your audience. Now we even have to have the ability to make maps that are colorblind friendly, et cetera. So when you're designing and thinking about the message you want to communicate, and I still have to perfect this. I'm very grateful for the compliment, but I am a work in progress. Um, but you really have to think about the symbology that you're putting. Do I want this to be transparent? Do I want these to be a point? Do I want these to be this color? What's the contrast going to look like? When I put this all into the big picture, is this going to make sense, or is this going to clutter and cloud what I'm trying to communicate through the map? So when you're trying to accomplish what we're doing with the Bigfoot mapping project, you really have to think about, all right, what is the first mission of this map? And really, it's to capture data and show the users where Bigfoot is. So that's what you see at first, like hotspots when you go in the pro one, or all the points when you go into the first edition that I put out, the first version. And then you can go on and turn all of this supporting data that you were talking about earlier. I have a ton of little treasures buried in there. There's one, the Phenocam network. If you really dig through the legend, you can turn on the University of New Hampshire has a Phenocam network, and it's these cameras that take a few pictures a day each, and they're scattered throughout the entire continent. And phenology, I'm sure people in the comments are going to correct me. Phenology is the study of change over time or seasonal change. I believe that's correct. But what they are doing essentially is taking a picture a day to look at all the changes throughout the seasons. But a byproduct of that is those cameras are out in the woods. So you can click through the catalog of all those cameras to see what the environment's like where a sighting may be nearby, or you can even look through the thousands, hundreds of thousands of images that these photos capture to see if there's anything in these images passively. So there's all kinds
Wow.
of stuff buried in this map, that people might not even realize is there, to be interactively explored.
All kinds of Easter eggs.
Very much so.
Wow,
Yes.
that's
Hopefully.
really, really cool.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time on it myself. It's actually something I'd like to be able to say that I built this as a tool that I would use, and I'm happy to put it out there for others to use.
I think that's where, passion projects, really find their juice, right? Um, because I know I've had that experience in the past with like, oh, you know what? I really wish I had something that did this. Let's try to make it. And sometimes you succeed and sometimes you fail, but I think that's the joy, because the joy's in the work of it as well. And then when you see the finished product, and even though it's always a work in progress, I imagine with updates and things like that, because you already referenced old map, new map, the joy is the caretaking of it now, and the upkeep, and okay, now feedback. So what year did you launch?
Uh, right during COVID, actually. So it would have been early 2020, I guess. We launched, and I could tell you an exact date, but it was around COVID. I was a little stir crazy then. So
Yeah, of course.
actually, it might have been a stroke of luck that everything was closed, all the state parks and everything, because I had to do something with these idle hands, and it came up with the actually bringing the Bigfoot mapping project to fruition, making it happen.
Yeah, I mean, my cousins and I, we created an app that identified crystals during the pandemic. I mean, talk
Oh
about, yeah.
wow.
So I mean, it's like one of those passion projects, right? But
I'm getting an education in crystals since I've moved to Sedona, as a matter
oh
of fact.
my Zeus, are you ever? I
Yeah,
mean, we're talking about quite possibly crystal capital of the United States.
yeah, it's definitely.
Although Phoenix, Tucson, or the Tucson Gem Show they might put up a fuss and say, "Hey, we're the crystal capital because of the Gem Show."
Yeah,
Um,
fair.
but but also to be fair, there's other really big gem shows that are occurring outside of just Tucson too throughout the year. Almost every weekend of the year, there's a gem show going on somewhere, which is kind of wild to think about. But um, I got to tell you, Sedona is one of my top two places. Mount Shasta, Sedona, they flip flop. I don't know which I love more. Have you been up to Shasta?
No, I haven't. It's on the list.
Yeah. Oh my God. It. I have a friend who lives up there, and he tells me the perfect time to go is like first week of October, first 2 weeks of
Mm,
October, right around there, because it's still very warm during
hmm.
the days, and it's absolutely gorgeous there. And I've only been there like very, very late winter, early spring, so there's always been 20 feet of snow still everywhere,
Oh
and I
yeah.
haven't really been able to explore the mountain. But oh my gosh, you're gonna love it. There's more crystal shops than gas stations, which tells you it's a good town. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. Good vibes. Since we're talking about Mount Shasta, there is a pocket. I've got a data set that I'm going to release, and I've talked about it before. But it's basically pockets of uninterrupted habitat that I've mapped for the entire United States. And what I've done is intersected all of the Bigfoot reports with these pockets of uninterrupted habitat. So I'm extrapolating a sighting now into a pocket of habitat.
Oh my God, hold on. Hold this thought. We're gonna do a quick break. And when we come back, I want to hear more about this. This is really cool. I got Scott Tompkins here. We're talking about the Bigfoot Mapping Project. We're talking about Sedona, Mount Shasta. We're talking about, Marmalade's First Adventure children books. I mean, these are the things that bring joy to this life. So remember, patreon.com/Ryan Singer. $3 a month. That's pretty much like the only tier over there. I think there's $1. You can also be free. $3 a month gets you no commercials ever. So isn't that a beautiful world to live in, commercial free? We're going to be right back talking about uninterrupted habitat in Mount Shasta. I mean, this is like, you just like said like a sentence that was like my wheelhouse of like, holy, I mean, get Odin on the line. We're opening up Valhalla for this. We're going to be right back.
Instagram teen accounts have automatic protections for what teens see and who can contact them, plus time management tools. And Instagram will continue adding built-in safety features to help create age-appropriate experiences. Learn more about teen accounts and Instagram's ongoing work to protect teens online at instagram.com/teen accounts.
Okay, we're back. I got Scott Tompkins here. Now, tell me, what Okay, say this again because this sounds super exciting.
Okay. So there is a data set out there called the Green Infrastructure Data Set, and Esri put it out. It's meant for responsible urban development, right? So where are you going to put a highway? Where are you going to develop at, I don't know, at airports, et cetera, anywhere that's going to impact habitat. And what it maps is where wildlife travels, and also, as I mentioned, uninterrupted islands, if you will, of habitat. So what that means is there's no roads or no human influence breaking up this habitat, right? So we were talking about Mount Shasta before the break, and one of the 800,000 acre uninterrupted, which is huge. I mean, that's gigantic area. Uninterrupted island of habitat that I've found has 38 Bigfoot reports within it historically.
Wow.
It is the single densest pocket of habitat in the country of Bigfoot reports near Mount Shasta, just west of Mount Shasta.
I mean, I'm packing the car right now, dude.
It's on my list. That's why I wasn't kidding when I said it's on my list. If you gave me, there's a few places I would go, and that is one of them. And I may blow your mind even more, but if you gave me a top three, that's probably in the top three of where I'd go. Then I'm able to look at the corridors that connect these islands, right? So the least cost pathways, they're called. So path of least resistance. Where are you going to travel between a habitat, power line right-of-ways, et cetera, things like that. Think about where the easiest path to get from one place to another is. A stream that connects two islands of habitat. How does wildlife get from one island to another, right? So they're going to travel these pathways. Well, I've also got those pathways, and I put a quarter-mile buffer on these pathways and intersected that buffer with all of the Bigfoot reports in the database. So not only do we have we've identified the habitat cores where these Bigfoot likely reside or stay for a while. And then we also have the most likely pathways that they use to get between these habitat cores. So we have Bigfoot highways and also all these cores. I have an entire map of the entire United States. Every 16,000 reports are intersected with this data set. So it's not just points anymore. It's identified habitat and travel ways between, byways, if you will.
I mean, if I win the Powerball on Saturday, I'm funding this. We are funding a year-long expedition.
I'm gonna hold you to that.
I mean, are you kidding me?
Out there.
Access to this kind of information and this kind of data to inform launch points or locations to study. I mean, obviously, I'm not like a full-on, member of like the Squatch community, right? Like if you asked like the famous Bigfoot people, like things like that, right? Like I don't, I'm not known as like a Bigfoot person necessarily, right? At all. But I'm telling you, if you talk to most of anybody who's been into this for at least a little while, a lot of them know hotspots and there's locations and there's all over the country. Now, when you can add that to like real like data here and getting backed up through science and information, that to me is so thrilling and exciting to think that it kind of just ups the game and if nothing else gives us a better chance to have that experience, to have a sighting, even if it's undocumented, right, with camera or photo or whatever, because a lot of people just want to have the experience. They just want to see, and it'll change their life if they do.
It does.
And I think, I've had a vocal experience of a creature of some kind. I used to think when it first happened, I thought it was Sasquatch. I no longer believe that it was. I don't know what it was. But I've never seen There's been a couple times where I thought I might have had it. And I start freaking out in a way that is unparalleled to anything else that's ever happened in my life. And those are false alarms. So I couldn't even imagine seeing. You've had an experience. I guess let's kind of touch on that right now. I think this feels like a natural point for that because
Sure.
we're talking about life. I'm guessing it's a life-changing experience from your response.
It it was, and it is. I had already started the Bigfoot mapping project. It was actually about 2 years after I started the project, and I love to hunt. So normally, if I was still in my house in Houston, you'd see all my taxidermy because my wife only gave me one room to keep all my dead stuff in, and it was usually behind me. But I was hunting in Sealy, Texas, on my deer lease. It's about 200 acres, and I was in a river bottom, and it was October. I was bow hunting, and I there's a lot of wild boar and cattle and things like that that roam through. And as I was walking out, it was that kind of blue gray time where the sun had just set. So you really start to only see the silhouettes of things. It's hard to distinguish what color they really are when it's just before dark, but you can still kind of see. And um, I wasn't using a light to walk out because this is like a sandy, loamy bottom. So I could see the path and I know it very well. So I was just walking on the sand very quietly. And as I was going through the barbed wire fence, I got through the fence and I kind of popped back up on the other side when I was in the pasture, and I started walking along the fence, and I looked off to my about my 11 o'clock, and there was like a sagebrush, short sagebrush in the field of just like grasses and cactus and pointy things, and there was this blob of shadow, and it looked like a hog, like a wild boar. And I mean, I have videos of 50 or 60 of them walking through my trail camera. So naturally, I was like, oh man, that's a big one. I only have my bow. I'm just going to stand here and let it go on its way. And I'll just kind of scoot to my truck when it's far enough away. I don't want to mess with that. I can't outrun this. And when I when I was standing there, it like stood up just from behind the tree. It stood up vertical on two legs, and it was this broad silhouette of just, I mean, what looked like just pure like athletic muscle traps from here, your ears straight to your shoulders, and just a big old, I mean, I hate to be, cliche, but a big old pointy head. Like, and the hands, I don't know if you could see my hand in the camera, they're kind of just hanging like that, just like in that shape there, where it's very relaxed by his sides. You could see the front silhouette just about down to his waist, maybe behind the bush, right? And I stood there for a second, and I was just really thinking about, like, at first I was like startled. This is perhaps dangerous. I don't know if this is a person much bigger than me. And I just said, whoa, just like that, just whoa, because it just came out. Like, I wasn't thinking like any other thing. It's just very surprised. Just whoa. And when I said that, it squatted back down, right in the same position it was, kind of like in the shape of a hog again. And so I guess innocently, or however you want to say it, I just said, I see you, just like that. Like, I see you, like you're talking to a child, right? Like or at least a person. I didn't know in the moment what was happening. Like, I did not jump to, oh my God, this is Bigfoot. Never in that moment did I think that. I was just thinking, what's happening? So I was more reacting than anything, and I just said, I see you. And it stood immediately after I said that. It stood back up, turned around, and ran full tilt sprint through the entire. And this is like 3 or 4, like 3 foot grass, right? It's tall grass, and it's got divots and everything. And it just it just ran, and you could hear it, and then on the edge of that field there is a stand of trees, and I mean, it's thick. I've been crawling through there I found skulls and all kinds of things in there. Um, and it's thick. It's just all fallen trees and bramble. And you could just hear it. Once it hit that, it was breaking the branches straight through, never slowed down until I just couldn't hear it anymore. And then I'll be honest, I ran back to my truck, got in, locked the door, and called my mom, of all people, because I guess I was just in that mode of I don't know, right, reacting. But
Yeah, no, that makes sense. You're looking for someone who, identifies as a caretaker, as like a safe anchor for you, right? I'm guessing, is your mom.
yeah, yeah, and she listens. And I was like, you never. I just saw. I was flabbergasted, and I just saw a Bigfoot. I just saw a Bigfoot, and then like I kept repeating it. Like as I was saying it, I was realizing that that's what happened, and I was like, can I curse on here? Is
Oh,
that okay?
yes. Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, holy shit, I just saw Bigfoot. You know what I mean? Like,
Holy-
so like, yeah, it was just a pretty wild experience. And um, afterwards it kind of hit me. I was like, oh man, one of the reasons I don't always share this a lot is because I don't want people to be like, all right, the Bigfoot mapping project guy saw a Bigfoot, and that's why you know what I mean? That's not why I started this. We already talked about that. It just so happened that I've intersected with Bigfoot while I was hunting. I wasn't out squatching. I was doing something else with no idea that I was going to have this experience, and I did. And then, now reading all these reports, it really helps me put myself in people's shoes that are like, I was driving down the road and this thing ran in front of me, and people are like, you saw a moose's butt, like, or whatever, right? And I'm like, no, I tend to be more willing to be open-minded now than maybe I would have been before, for sure.
Yeah, fundamental change has occurred, right?
Very much so. Like not the whole fabric of reality. I didn't have like an existential crisis
You
because
didn't
of this,
like
but
abandon your family and
yeah,
go live in a
no,
tree and I
but
could
it's
speak to them though. I could speak to them.
yeah, you might not have invited me on had I gone down that road. But in all seriousness, though, I do feel like this is happening more to people, and luckily I don't embarrass easily, so I was okay with sharing this with people. I had already started the project, and now I have like maybe I feel like it lends some camaraderie to people that are also having these experiences, knowing that there's somebody out there who has had this and is trying to at least document it and learn more through the project. So yeah, I'm glad you brought it up because I don't always go down that road.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a sense of comfort and community, and which is to me one of the biggest things we can hope for in shared storytelling and the human connection, and something that maybe we get a little bit away from, at least in an immediate fashion in the digital age. We can still connect and we're sharing stories right now digitally. We're not in person here, but and that's still better than nothing. It's actually exponentially better than nothing. But I think that shared experience, even if someone hasn't had exactly the same thing, right? It there's comfort there, and we can remove maybe some of the embarrassment, or if we feel like, oh, I want to be taken seriously as X, Y, and Z, but if I share A, B, and C, then no one's going to want to. And then the more and more we do, the more we realize, like, oh, the whole alphabet has had a kind of crazy experience of people. And even the people who say, oh, I've never experienced anything weird. And then like 3 minutes later, like, oh, but there was that one time when, my grandmother's ghost walked through the house and asked and was serving breakfast. And but it's like, oh, you forgot about that. But
Yeah.
but I appreciate you sharing that because, you know, and this is an interesting thing too, because someone who might be a little more skeptically bent might be sitting there going, why didn't you go to the tree line and see if you could follow it? It's
Oh,
like,
I went back. I went back during the daytime.
well, that's what I mean in the moment, right? And
Yeah.
like, because in the moment, I think you touched on it. You're like, I ran to my car, locked the door, and called my mom. And,
Yeah.
because there's people out there who they don't really, I don't think they're practicing empathy enough when they're like, well, why didn't you just go chase after this huge creature when it's getting dark into the woods, right? It's like, oh, you would have? You would have? Oh, yeah, I would have. I would have had to known. It's like, okay, well, maybe you're Rambo.
And that the funny thing is, I have, walked, I love to hunt, right? So I walk in the dark, I walk out in the dark. I'm in Texas, you can hear the hogs growling at you sometimes and you
That's
just can't
terrifying to
see
me.
them. And it really spikes your adrenaline, right? But you've got to be careful, there's et cetera. You get to know how to go about being in the woods. And I had done it enough where I'm practiced. Am I an expert? No, but I'm practiced enough to be comfortable in the wilderness. And in that moment, I was like, I am locking my doors. You could like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
so
this thing's got
yeah,
thumbs, bro. This thing's got
yeah,
thumbs, bro, and I
yeah, you're right. Yeah. So it is easy to say that, but I think it does take practice. And I talked about this with a lot of other people in I had a podcast for a while and I've learned a lot from the guests there. Situational awareness, being prepared to be present in a high stress moment, that takes practice. It takes so much practice, and it takes years for people to reach that, right? So, I think that I'm glad you're looking at it through that angle because people might sit back and hear my story and be like, dude, you had a bow, like go get the thing. It's like it doesn't work like, or at least it
no.
doesn't work like that for me, right? It didn't.
I don't know if I want to, be friends with or talk to a guy who's like, yeah, I saw a unicorn. I happened to have my rifle on me, so I shot it. It's like, like I'm like, I don't know if you're the guy I'm trying to be friends with, like you see this creature that's quote unquote mythical, unexplainable creature, you see it and your first instinct is like, I gotta put it down, right?
I didn't even,
Like,
yeah, I forgot I was holding my bow, to be honest. I didn't even think about a weapon. So yeah, it's a very fair point. But, I hope someday somebody has the presence of mind not to harm one, but to capture irrefutable evidence. I really hope for that day. And I hope it leads to the protection and conservation of Bigfoot. I really sincerely do.
yeah,
Bigfoot,
that would be
Sasquatch, yeah.
really, yeah, that would be really cool. I know before her death, a friend of mine, Claudia Ackley, had um, she was working on like a lawsuit against
Hmm.
the state of California to put up warning signs, kind of like protection signs for Bigfoot and Sasquatch after an experience her and her two daughters had with her in Lake Arrowhead, up in the mountains up there, and that was really really kind of scared the shit out of her kids and her uh, as well. But I think too, I mean, I know after my experience, I needed to seek professional help, and I sought a PTSD therapist, and I had difficulty sleeping for quite a long time afterward, and
Hmm.
and he's a therapist I still see to this day, just from the benefits that I was getting from him. I was like, I'm going to keep doing this on a weekly basis if I can, but I'm wondering if your experience doesn't seem to be of the like aggressive confrontation or terrifying nature, as much as it was startling, awe-inspiring, and kind of bewildering. Is that a fair assessment?
Very fair. I mean, I certainly didn't feel any trauma or unease from it. In fact, it's had the opposite effect. I try to get out and explore. I still, even to this day, however many years later it was, 4 years later, um, I still go out and even crawl even deeper into places that just look really uninviting on that deer lease. I mean, muddy, brambly, because I want to understand why it was there, and I want to understand what was going on, what attracted it to that property. Were there food sources? Was it a connecting to habitat cores? Why was it there at the time it was there? What the time of year, the moon phase, all of that. And I've learned a lot about that area. I've found freshwater clams the size of my hand out there in the river, tubers, and there's deer, and there's all kinds of food and uh, forage that can host a large animal. Obviously, it hosts hogs, so I mean, it can host just about anything. But it's only caused me to become more of a student in the wilderness than to feel like I'm entitled to say I'm now some kind of Bigfoot expert because I saw one. No, it's had the opposite effect. It just made me realize how little I actually knew about what was happening out there.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think in best case scenario, an experience with the supernatural, the unexplainable, or high strangeness can inspire curiosity at its peak. And and the chase for mystery begins, and there the joy of life lies within. But we're gonna we're gonna take one more break, and when we come back, I want to revisit just a little bit about, you said you went back the next day, or you went back after the experience. We're gonna touch on that, and then I want to weigh in. I'm a woo-woo wild one, Scott. I gotta warn you about that. And you were asking the question, what was it doing there? How does it get there? And part of me wanted to say, well, was it a portal? And I know we can maybe get into that a little bit too when we get back after this last break. So just a reminder, patreon.com/Ryan Singer, $3 a month, no commercials. We're going to be right back. Shout out to Paranormal Corp. Do you need a ghost for your kid's birthday party? They Paranormal Corp can supply any kind of ghost you need. Sponsor of the show. We have to shout out to them. So thank you, Paranormal Corp. And we're going to be right back. Okay, we're back with Scott Tompkins. We're talking about, the Bigfoot mapping project. We're talking about your experience, a pretty incredible experience. I mean, not many people are lucky enough to have such a sighting. Very, very cool. I appreciate you sharing. Now, you said you went back afterward to the location. Did you find any like large prints, or or obvious damage of it running through the tightly packed woods that you talked about?
I did see a lot of trails, right? Unfortunately, I guess unfortunately or fortunately, is packed with wildlife. So to be able to distinguish whether it was evidence of what I saw that evening, or if it had been trampled by, the wild hogs I mentioned, or the deer, there's coyotes that come through and bobcats. There was nothing there that I would consider conclusive, hard evidence that that would check a box for me. But I was able to, that stand of trees, for example, that I mentioned, I'd never really paid attention to that stand of trees because it's closer to the road. So I'm hunting on the way opposite side, and what it did do was get me crawling through those stand of trees. And that's where I mentioned I found a lot of um carcasses, and I attributed that at the time to like roadkill kind of wandering off and dying. But I mean, it was probably there were deer bones and raccoon bones there. So in an unusual concentration just in this, and I'm not saying there's like piles of them, but it was like two or three, and you don't normally find two or three even carcasses in one place normally, I guess, in the wilderness. So that was one odd thing that stood out to me, but that can be explained away, like I said, by roadkill, right? It's they could be crossing there because there's a creek. It's an easy crossing. So there was no obvious, hard, unique evidence that I could attribute to what I saw, really, truly. I wish there was. I was hoping there was, because I wanted, I still want answers. I still crawl around out there, and I've never found a footprint in the mud that, looks squatchy at all. So it's very perplexing to me. It's very perplexing.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I saw you here. Where is the evidence? I know you were here.
Yeah. And the evidence is in your brain. It's in your mind. And it's in your memory and the story you tell. And I think we'll come back to a place in maybe in this country, and I know other places in the world it really never left, but firsthand experience and things like that it's enough evidence for me, and it stands up in a court of law as well when it comes to eyewitness testimony and things like that. So it's good enough for me, for sure. I'm having deja vu right now in a pretty intense way, so that's pretty cool. That must mean we're on the right track. I I'm curious about the, the compilation of so many sightings. And what was the total you said? Did you say you had
Roughly 16,000.
16,000 reports? Um, I'm wondering what information has surprised you the most since you began the project that you weren't expecting to find or learn or to even start thinking about when it came to the mapping project?
So one of the things that's really become a focus for me that at the time when I started the project wasn't really, I wanted to tie Bigfoot to hard locations, right? I was thinking it was just going to be 1+1. And over the years, it has evolved into, like I've touched on, this network, and it's really a wildlife study for me. And one of the things that it has brought to the surface is the seasonal waxing and waning of the reports, right? You can start to see concentrations during winter, for example. Excuse me, yeah, winter. You can start to see end of winter. They start to be closer together, and then they start to expand and contract again. And it made me think, okay, why are they doing this? Or is it food availability? Is it mating? Is it, what are the reasons for this expansion and contraction?
Are you talking like, sorry, are you talking like density of sightings
Yes,
or
sorry.
occurrences?
I
Okay,
should have
okay,
I should have clarified. When I say the density, I'm talking about the spatial area of hotspots, right? So you can start to
okay.
see this hotspot expand, and then you can start to see it contract as the year and seasons progress. So one of the things that indicated to me on more of a macro scale is like people that are making these reports aren't thinking, I'm going to make this report. I'm going to say it's during July, so that it really skews this data set. It just doesn't, it's not happening like that, right? So this is a naturally occurring pattern and trend that's coming through the analysis of this aggregated data set. And it's things like that I'm really starting to hopefully, I don't want to use the word transcend, but I'm hopefully starting to get to another tier or another scale of looking at Bigfoot reports. I very much enjoy anecdotal reports and what a person has experienced, but to understand Bigfoot, Sasquatch as a species, we have to go zoom out from there, right? And we have to look at what their behavior is, where they're found, and start to determine, why are those behaviors happening, right? And this analysis has honestly caused more questions for me than answers. And people come, it's funny, when I do talk to people like yourself, they're like, what about this? And I'm like, I don't know. And they're like, what about this? I don't know. Like, I wish I could tell you. I have the data, and the answer is we need more data to be able to really definitively give you some kind of solid answer. We're just not there yet. And if I were to give you anything more than a hypothesis, I would be, fabricating or inserting my bias, and I don't want to do that. So I think two-pronged answer to your question. One, it has highlighted things that are happening at the macro level that I never even thought I would kind of discover or learn. And then two, it's made me realize that I'm probably almost never going to really be able to have as many answers as I wanted to have when I started this. So hence the term passion project, right? And how many people start something and never finish it. And then starting to realize that, I'm going to continue to have more questions than answers.
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm having this thought that listening to you describe that when you find a passion project that is, ultimately unanswerable, it's truly a life well lived. And, we could solve 2 + 2 = 4 all day long with some of these other things in life, and you give it a week and you don't give another thought to that 4 that you came up with, right? It's pretty fascinating though to think about the trends and the macro and the thing that you're saying. Now, is there a way to indicate, in addition to the waxing and the waning of the density of the hotspots, for time of year as well, or does that seem to not ebb and flow as much?
No, it does. It does for time of year. Absolutely. Seasonality. Even down to the month sometimes in some places. Absolutely. Um, I can't tell go out this week per se, and you're going to have an experience, but I can say, oh, this time of year they're more concentrated in X area over there, according to the data, and this data ranges anywhere from, the 1800s all the way through today, right? It's the aggregate, right? So now because there's so few reports, in areas yearly, right? It's such you can't, it's hard to look at it in a discrete time frame other than in the aggregate, because there's just not enough data, right? There's maybe one report from, in some areas, one report from the 80s, right, in 100 square mile radius, and it's like that doesn't really help, but as you start layering in reports from years after years after years, you start to build up a body of reports in that area. Now, the temporal angle of it, you have to take the years out of it, but if you look at the months and the seasons, you start to get patterns, and that's kind of what I've done with that, because I just don't have enough to do it on a discrete year over year over year over year. We're
Sure.
not there yet.
Now, in a very generalized way, would you say if someone was like, let's say we're going to Florida, Panhandle, which has a heightened interest for me. I'm very biased about this area, because that's where I go to a specific location. Um, Off the top of your head, is, like if someone wanted to have a sighting or put themselves in a good spot, is it the warmer or the colder? Typically, when the clusters of sightings happen throughout the year, like seasonally.
It's early spring, early spring.
Oh, okay.
They're more
So,
clustered early spring, end of winter, early spring. I might have had it backwards earlier when I said it, and forgive me if I did, but um, they spread out more, fall, winter, and I think part of that is food availability, right? They're searching for, they're scavenging, looking for what's available, and then as things start to bloom and melt, etc., they come back together. I think perhaps it's also a conscious decision, family planning, if you will, early spring to
yeah.
come back together and mate, etc. And that is when they're concentrated. So that's what's my hypothesis is that, and I base it on other animals' behavior, right? It's not a guess per se. It's an educated guess, but um, I would say if you wanted to have an experience at a certain time of year, this species, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, is more concentrated in early spring in locations that
Wow,
are, good
that's
habitat.
music to my ears, because I'll be heading to this place the beginning of March, which seems
Perfect.
perfect timing. And just as an anecdotal side note, the activity that has been reported there has been exceptionally increased very recently, the last few weeks. So it seems to kind of be tracking with, or for like the last month, where it's starting to get warmer down there, because obviously it gets warmer in Florida quicker than it does everywhere else. But so that's pretty interesting. And it seems to point to exactly what you're saying. That's really cool. Now, from the, I guess from the depths of your curiosity, right? Let's try to mine this one, and we'll let people kind of ruminate on it and all this other stuff as well. And because this has been a great chat, and we're gonna have to do this again, especially after I win the Powerball.
Yeah, please.
And
I'm not going to forget that.
and
It's
and trust
it's
me, I won't
recorded.
forget it either. It is recorded. It's going out into the world. You don't have to twist my arm to get me to go to Mount Shasta. I mean, I am a 8.5 hour drive straight up Interstate 5. I can jump on the 5, and then I get off the 5 in Mount Shasta and go to the original Black Bear Diner,
Oh, nice.
The very first one, which I don't know if you've ever been to a Black Bear Diner before.
Oh, sure.
The
Absolutely.
original, oh my God. So I'm a diner guy. The original Black Bear Diners in Mount Shasta, and it is, I can't eat anywhere else when I'm in town. It's just
Oh,
that
I'm
good.
originally a New Yorker. I'm a diner guy too.
Oh,
Big
okay.
time. Yeah, I grew up
Okay.
in New York, born and raised.
Okay. Very cool. Um, okay. So let's go to the depths of your curiosity here. Now, 10 years ago, this wasn't really the case. You wouldn't have this conversation nearly as much. But, when it comes to the woo woo or the woo paranormal side of Bigfoot, that seems to have, some people would say, infiltrated cryptozoology and specifically the Bigfoot side of research, where there's a lot more talk. And, even Ron Moorhead wrote The Quantum Bigfoot and, who responsible for bringing us the Sierra Sound, some of the most famous Bigfoot noises, or alleged Bigfoot noises. Where do you, with being able to analyze all these data and you have all these reports, these firsthand accounts, did you start out at all with any woo in you regarding Bigfoot? And if so, how much more do you have now, or how much less do you have now? Or either way? Due to your experience, first of all, and also the project?
I started out not realizing the woo, if you will, in quotes, respectfully, um, that surrounded Bigfoot because the stories that I heard didn't include any of those aspects. It's not until I got more into the research community that I started to hear about portals and orbs and mind speak and things like that, that that I even started to really be curious about it. And I am curious about it because just like people are having reports, it's something that's happening to people, right? And this is a very parallel thing to what got me to start the Bigfoot mapping project. People are telling me about it and they're talking about it. I'm getting curious about it. I don't understand it. I'd be crazy to say that I had a really solid opinion on it because it is uh, so it transcends humanity, I guess you would say, or our understanding. And I don't have, on one hand, I certainly would never insert my bias into the report. But I say that because I will also never delete or remove real reports. So I'm bringing that up because I want this to truly be a body of evidence. And if that is happening with Bigfoot, whether I'm open to it or not, does not matter. What matters is what the data shows and what we're capturing. And there are not a lot of reports, at least captured in the database that I have. Whether that's a phenomenon of, people holding it close to the vest or being a fear of being judged. Like you said, you wouldn't talk about it until 10, recent past. So I'm starting to think, there's some people I consider very, very skeptical, serious people that have talked to me about mind speak. And these are people that I never would have thought would have had this experience. And it just kind of really made me take a step back and think about I talk about my bias a lot because I think when you're really trying to understand something, understanding your bias really matters so that you can look at it from a hopefully clear perspective. And in a long-winded answer to your question, am I in that camp? No, I am dipping a toe out of
Okay,
curiosity.
okay.
And and perhaps that's my background is I'm very interested in wildlife. My degree is in I have conservation biology background, GIS. So I'm grounded in that. It's hard for me to break out of that. Am I willing to follow where the data takes me? And that's what I want to emphasize. Yes, I am. If the data takes me that way and what is collected in the crowdsourcing report and survey, yes, I will. I am open to that. I'm not going to cherry pick things, but I personally, I'm just dipping a toe at the moment.
Okay. Hey, don't worry. Nobody's going to throw you in the pool with your cell phone in your pocket. Um, so yeah, I mean, the water's warm. So you always got to start with a toe. That's for damn sure.
Right.
Scott, this has been a ton of fun. And it's been very enlightening, informative. I'm super excited. I'm stoked, jazzed. I'm like this uninterrupted habitat thing you're talking about, and that like your number one spot is just west of like Mount Shasta.
Yeah,
That to
keep your
me,
eyes peeled. Keep
oh
your eyes
my,
peeled. There's something coming in. There's something in the works. I don't want to be too cryptic, but I have a whole redesigned app I've built from scratch that goes well beyond what the capabilities of bigfootmap.com are right now.
well, you got to let me know when that's coming out.
Oh, I will be screaming it from the rooftops. I'm very excited about it. It's almost ready. I've got that would be it may be another episode if you're willing to have me back, because it's
I was gonna say, I don't care if it's the next episode that comes out after this one when this comes out. I'm totally interested in that. Super excited. Really, really impressive what you've been able to put together as it stands already. And I can't recommend enough for people to go to bigfootmap.com. I believe I got that right. And there's a link tree. You got some cool merch, hoodies, shirts.
Oh yeah, that's what I do when I'm bored. I make those little graphic designs to put on t-shirts and stuff. It's a lot of fun. It's a good creative outlet.
Yeah, and it's like it's so cool to like actually be able to dig your hands into some information and toggle, filter and do these things on the map. And I think people are going to get a real, first of all, it's a very practical and useful tool. Second of all, it's hyper fascinating, interesting, not to mention all these other things you're talking about that are kind of Easter eggs with inside of it. So that's really, really rad. I look forward to our next conversation. And is there anywhere else you want to point people to find you in the meantime?
Yeah, actually, there's a few things. One, if you are so inclined, you can always reach out to me at scott@bigfootmap.com. I have an inbox dedicated to this passion. I quickly realized that I needed an inbox dedicated to this, so there it is. And then a great place to look at some of the insights that I have drawn over the years from the data is on Instagram. It's at Bigfoot Mapping Project. And I publish maps that I've made myself that kind of go beyond the interactive map on bigfootmap.com and go into some true spatial analysis, or look at specific areas, or bring in specific data that's really not available to the general public if you don't know where to find it. So I do those kinds of things on Instagram. And then may I plug and also one last surprise for this show? Next year, I've had the privilege of working with Les Stroud on his documentary, Question of Bigfoot. So the Question of Bigfoot, it's coming out next year. And I think if you mentioned you enjoyed Flash of Beauty, I think you will thoroughly, thoroughly enjoy the work that Les and his team are doing. I had the privilege of working with them on some things. I still am working with them on things, and the angles and everything they're looking into, there's no stone left unturned. And Les is even cooler in person than he is on Survivor Man. They say never meet your heroes, but in this case, they were wrong.
Very cool. Very cool. Look forward to it. Again, bigfootmap.com. This has been great. And I look forward to having you on again when you're able to talk more about the latest and greatest that's getting ready to come down and be released. So that's going to be rad. So thanks for everybody for listening. I appreciate you as well. Hope to see you at a live show sometime later in the summer. And if not, I'll just keep on seeing you at the watering hole on the astral plane.
When patient care is your top priority, you need a proven workforce solutions partner who can deliver it all and deliver it right. AMN Healthcare brings together technology and talent into one seamless solution. Trusted by more than 2,000 health systems across the country, we help organizations make smarter, data-driven decisions and improve patient outcomes. AMN Healthcare. One partner, complete workforce solutions. Discover how we are empowering the future of care at amnpartners.com.